everybody, to our final week. It seems like it's gone by awfully quickly this year. We've been talking since the beginning of this series about the symbols and the signs and the visual things that connect us to our faith. And tonight we're going to look at less the history of those things and how they're expressed now in the modern world. This first slide, this is a prayer card. They're common in Roman Catholic tradition. I picked this one because it's modern. It's a contemporary artist who is making these cards. She lives in Queensland, Australia. But if you look here, all of the nails, the whip, the thorn, the hammer, all of those things are now looking at Christ as the Savior of the world in that globe in the back. What interests me about this is that this sort of sets our purpose. When we see a symbol, it causes us to remember the story. And so we have to be careful with our symbols. That's why symbols matter so much, because they connect us to what we believe to be true. And so when we see a symbol, we have to make sure that it is, A, representing a truth, representing it accurately, and also, is it one that we understand to be a proper interpretation of that truth for the world? You really do. You kind of have to watch your truths. This one you have seen before, the nail that we carry around in this congregation during Lent. This is, instead of being an individual expression like the prayer card, this is a community expression. This is something that says we in this room and those who are watching at home share a particular faith, but we also share a particular symbol of that faith that belongs to us. One of the historians that I like said that religious festivals both interrupt and articulate the life of people, and particularly in groups like this. They do interrupt, and they do articulate in that we are taken out of our ordinary time and our ordinary activities, and we make changes so that it is recognizable that we're in this particular time. We change the colors of the liturgy. We stop doing things or start doing things that we don't do at other times of year. We take this as a time set apart, and we gather in our sacred spaces to observe it. And we do these communally sacred actions. You'll see it on Thursday night when Pastor Karen washes somebody's feet. Baptisms, ordinary Eucharist that we do every week. All of those things are sacred times and sacred actions. And the little nails that we carry around do not tell the whole story. We would have to explain it to somebody if we ran into somebody on the street. But, when I'm rummaging through my wallet and up pops this little nail, it's kind of like, oh, yeah, it's Lent. And I'm reminded, even for just a second, that this is the time that's being interrupted and articulated by something as simple as a little framing nail. Civic expressions, that's where you can get into the public sphere and express what you believe about the truth to those around you. This, I think I jumped the gun here. No, okay. Yeah, I guess there's a slide missing. Well, if you ever want to see a slide of Diego Rivera's mural of the burning of the Judases, it's on the building in the middle of Mexico. You can go see it. Burning of the Judases is a festival that's designed to drive evil out of a place so that that place is purified to receive Jesus. And it goes back very strongly in Mexican tradition. And Rivera did his mural, but when he did it, it looks like a kind of a big swirling bunch of bodies that are all combating with each other for place. And when you look closely at it, yes, you see Judas, and yes, you see images that are of the devil or of evil beings, but it is, he also put a few politicians. The idea being that you have to watch what you understand evil to be and pay attention to it and make sure that, in his view, made sure that those who saw the mural saw what happened with the burning of Judas. Adding the politicians in says that, tells people, be careful and be patient. God will have the last laugh. These conquerors won't be here forever. The corrupt won't be here forever. And as we burn Judas, we burn the authority that those corrupt figures have. So it's a very interesting tradition, and it's one of many in terms of civic expressions around the world. This is one of the Judas figures that is part of a different interpretation of the festival that Rivera painted. They make these papier-mâché figures, and on Holy Saturday, they put fireworks in them and blow them up. And they do this all through the town to chase the evil away. And the idea is that Judas is kind of the embodiment of evil. He's that symbol that you see during Holy Week, because he was a man of reason and free will and intent, and chose to do something wrong. And so this is one of the ways that you let people know, in a fairly gentle way, but a very straightforward way, people who choose to be evil are going to be judged, and in this case, symbolically consigned to permanent separation from God. And a lot of these happen around the world, and some of them are huge. Some of them are just, little neighborhood festivals. On this side is an interesting one. It's a little rattle that makes a god-awful racket. And children in Switzerland and in Czech Republic, this one happens to be Czech, but Czech, Romania, all around the Balkans area, little boys, for the last 3 days of Holy Week, run around town rattling these little rattles. I mean, gangs of little boys running all over the place, running these little rattles around. They are to chase away evil. And then on Holy Saturday, all the boys together come through the town running their rattles, and they are given money as thanks for ridding the town of the evil, so that it is ready for Jesus. There's a lot of these that you see all over the place, and children's participation is very common in Holy Week ceremonies because children are innocent, children are pure. When evil invades a place, it will target children. So children must be protected, and children must be given faith to help them protect themselves. There's one of them where all of the fathers, anybody who has a child, who is a man who has a child in this village, goes away and makes a very threatening mask. On Holy Saturday, all the dads come charging into town from outside the town limits, and they meet in the town square, this wall of children who throw pebbles and laugh at them and chase them away. And so the sins of the fathers are removed from the children. All of these things, and again, Holy Saturday, the reason for that is they're making preparation. They are understanding what Jesus' coming means to them, but also what Jesus' death and certainly what his resurrection means to them. Another one of the civic ones, in Norway, radio and television stations stop broadcasting commercials for profit at 3 o'clock on Good Friday. And for the next 24 hours, all of that airtime that would go to profit making is dedicated to charitable organizations. so that you can learn how to love your neighbor better. And in a very homogeneous, very generally speaking, orderly population like Norway, that's one of the ways you can do it. You let people focus on what they can do to help when help is needed. Theological expressions, those are as many as you can find, and they are both useful and interesting. Martin Luther is actually connected to the beginning of Easter egg hunts. In Germany, he had a long and complex, very sophisticated religious tradition before Christians showed up. And it was hard for Christianity to take root there because of this very well-orchestrated religious tradition that they had. Luther was one who took a look at the notion of eggs being signs of spring, rebirth, renewal, all of the things that the pagans used eggs for in celebration. And he thought, a broken egg is the empty tomb, and helped to adopt that idea of using eggs as a symbol of the resurrection. And it became a very common thing. What they did initially in Germany was that the men would hide the eggs, and the women would take the children to go and find them. The theological expression there was, it was men who crucified Christ, it was women who found the tomb. So it began to expand this very Protestant, and Protestant was new, absolutely, at that time, this new Protestant notion of a more individual, more internal understanding of faith rather than faith residing in the church and it telling you what you believed in the medieval model. This now was going to be people finding things for themselves and using their own symbols to do it. A lot of that has to do with the notion that we accept children as being innocent. We accept children as being dependent. Children are not by nature expressly evil. Children will get along with each other if you give them half a chance. and children will learn to be kind if you tell them that kind is a good thing to be. So a lot of these festivals, especially those that include children, are there to remind us and in our adult thinking, that a childlike faith is exactly what Jesus was interested in. Jesus was the one who said, permit the children to come to me. I don't care if they get me dirty. I don't care if they crawl all over my lap. I want the children to come because that is the kingdom of God symbolized. That kind of innocence, that kind of freedom from the impetus to sin. And the innocence of children then has become a major factor in the way these symbols have come to be used and in the way people see them. And I think Easter is one of the times particularly that most involves children, because the baskets, but also the other things that happen in terms of spring and eggs and planting stuff and all the things you do then. Children were never particularly supposed to be involved with Christmas. You know, now you get Sunday school pageants, and that sort of got that going. But in general, Christmas was never taken to be a celebration for children. You gave them presents and you got them out of the way. Easter is. Easter is very much a community and family and all age appropriate celebration. And it's because of that childlike faith. And Holy Week is one of those times to remind us that it is our best way to receive Jesus resurrected is with the faith of a little child. A lot of the celebrations of Easter start and stop in the home. Those, particularly in Protestant tradition where you didn't have the central church doing all the expensive stuff for you. You had to scale things down so that poor people could make their own symbols and do their own inquiry into their own theological tradition. This is a pasanque egg. It is color incised in beeswax on a blown out chicken egg. And I've seen them in chicken eggs and duck eggs. Actually, I've seen them as big as goose and ostrich eggs if you want to get really big ones going. The big ones are easier because ostrich eggshells are tough as nails. You can incise anything into those. But with chicken eggs, it's a little harder. But in the Balkan and Eastern European areas, particularly in Ukraine, by the way, Sanke eggs are a national expression of faith. And they use them partly as an expression of how women have come to understand their place in the history of Easter. A lot of the symbols and the design work that you see on Sanke eggs actually antedate Christianity too. If you go and look at some of the folk dresses and weavings and that sort of thing from these more clanic and tribal kind of societies, you see a lot of geometric design. So what are women saying? This is what I know how to do. This is what I weave or paint or do whatever I do in my little house, in my little garden, with my little chickens. And now it will become not only a symbol of my faith in Easter, but a really lovely symbol. Sanke eggs, we have a couple of them, and they are quite delicate, and they are truly, truly lovely. Little pieces of art, and it's women all through the Balkans and the Caucasus saying the egg was the rebirth of spring. This is the rebirth of humankind through the resurrection of Jesus. Some expressions become enormous. We were really fortunate to spend part of Holy Week in Popayan, Colombia a few years ago. And each parish church in the town has a certain number of the statues that are dedicated to whichever saint that parish is interested in and that sort of thing. Gather all those statues together and you can tell the story of Holy Week, and that's what they do. On Palm Sunday, they start a procession and the whole town turns out, and the children lead, carrying the palms, and then everybody else comes along carrying the palms too. And during the day, they have the Palm Sunday procession with the statues from the churches that tell that part of the story. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Each day, the procession gets a little longer because there's a few more characters in the story. So they get hauled out of the churches, put on these paseos, these big floats, that are hammered silver on wood structures. They are spectacularly beautiful. And on the front end and on the back end, there's poles, and you'll have half a dozen very strong men on each end carrying these things. And Colombia is one of the primary distributors of flowers in the world. All through the week, they start out just with the palms on Palm Sunday, and then all through the week, the many colors that come out of the Colombian gardens start to disappear. Yellows go away, pink goes away, blue goes away. The colors get darker and darker. On Maundy, Thursday, they are almost completely devoid of any color but red. On Friday, they are blood scarlet. And all of these are covered with thousands of flowers. I mean, it really puts the Rose Bowl parade to shame. And then on Saturday, there is an Easter Vigil, which is the tradition there. And everyone goes to church. They have their liturgical celebration. And then at the end of the service, when Easter is pronounced, out of the church comes Christ raised from the dead. And there is every possible, imaginable color of flower on these paseos as they celebrate Easter. Christ comes, Mary, Mary Magdalene, the disciples, saints, angels, you name it. The procession by this time is probably a couple hours long. It goes on all night. There's community bands playing. There's people along the side of the street. They're doing their own procession with their own little candles. All night long is the celebration of the resurrection of Jesus. And the whole country is invited to come to this. Now, whether you are, in the Caucasus Mountains making a pasanke egg, or whether you are helping to carry a 1,000-pound paseo through the streets of Popayan, whether you're doing a stained glass window, whatever you're doing, the point is the same for all of us. And what's really not only useful but interesting to remember is that back in the beginning of this series, I said, Mother Teresa's definition of Lent was the time when we quenched Jesus' thirst. And that's what all of the symbols and signs of Holy Week do. They are seeking to tell the story. They're seeking to proclaim what Jesus said to proclaim on Maundy, Thursday night. Love me, love your neighbor as yourself. That was the commandment. Here are all the expressions of the way people fulfill that commandment. Signs and symbols of this around the world are evidence that everybody's listening, that Christians everywhere understand a common truth about Jesus. They filter their symbols through their own cultures, and that's fine, because it has to be your faith being expressed. And so we all have to do it our own way. But in each one of these symbols that we've looked at, we're finding the water that satisfies Jesus' need, expressed when he said, I thirst. For us, our thirst is quenched through the water of baptism. And through our baptism, we become the water bearers for Jesus in the world. And that's what these signs and symbols ultimately tell me, is that it's not just being thankful for redemption at Easter, but it's also being mindful that we have to keep telling the story. That's how Jesus' thirst is quenched. It's through us sharing the waters of our baptism through our symbols with everyone that we meet and everyone that we find. And Jesus really can't demand any more of us than that, but he certainly asks no less. And I think that is probably the ultimate lesson of Lent for me, is it's time to be the water bearer and quench the thirst of Christ. And I thank you. And we are almost into Sarah's time, so let us go. Oh, thank you.